Charles Ireland, CEO, Managing Director, EABL. Thanks very much for today's Mindspeak. What were your impressions?
I loved it. You know, it's great to see so many enthusiastic, mostly young, but not being ageist, but young people with kind of bright eyes and enthusiasm. Just so kind of attentive and some great questions as well. It was a great experience, and Ali Khan, thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. And like you were saying, what was making you optimistic about East Africa, I think that's what it's meat and drink to me as well.
Yeah.
I get excited when I do one of these. Charles, you've reported your first half results.
Yeah.
Can we just talk a little bit about that? Yeah. Now, obviously, the elephant in the room in those results was Senator.
Yeah.
We had this introduction of the excise duty. You mentioned that you thought price sensitivity, you thought demand would be more inelastic than it turned out to be. Is that telling us what are the messages you're drawing from this, and what is your response now to our policymakers?
Yeah, elephant in the room, right? So it knocked quite a few percentage points off the growth that we would have been able to report. We would have been in the teens.
Yes.
Otherwise, we were kind of medium, low, single digit, and that was quite kind of disappointing.
But once you stripped it out, it was a strong result.
Oh, you look at some of our other categories. I'm delighted at the progress we're making across other areas. The thing about the elasticity of Senator demand is really interesting. What it says to me is that the consumers of Senator are really at the kind of the bottom end of the affordability range. These guys are the guys who reload their cell phone with a 5 shilling top up, and for the price of a product like Senator or anything else to go up by 50-60%, it really kind of makes them think about whether or not they want to keep into that product or not. And the consumers of Senator, let's be clear, they haven't stopped drinking alcohol. Yes. They've just moved their consumption somewhere else. Now, some of that is into cheap spirits, which have got tax paid on them, and are produced by producers like ourselves and our competitors.
This is the Jebel Gin innovation.
The Jebel Gin, and there's a whole bunch of other.
That's like 10 shillings a tot, is it?
Well, can I come back to that? Yes. Right. So some of it is into what we would call packaged. So in PET or glass bottles, at maybe a price of 100 or 150 shillings per bottle for a 250 ml bottle. So some of the consumption's gone in there. Other parts of the consumption, though, has dropped into illicit. So it's dropped into Changa and Busa. Really, the consumption that's moved into spirits or other beer brands, really, for me, I don't worry about that. We need to be competitive in the marketplace, and we need to make sure that we're getting our fair share of brand consumption, of the kind of legal consumption. The stuff that I really worry about is the stuff that's gone into the illicits, into alcohol that's mixed in a bucket in somebody's back garden, that isn't produced to a quality assured standard, that might contain ingredients which are harmful to health, or might kind of, when you mix together, might kill you, might make you blind. Kenya had a big problem over that over the last 20-30 years of illicit alcohol affecting Kenyans' health, and I'm really worried about that, or concerned about it. So my thinking is that excise tax on Senator or any other product, I think, is a reasonable measure for government to take. I would just say that it was too much too soon, and in order to protect the health of Kenyans and to maximise revenue, the excise tax should have been lower. So, should have been introduced at a lower rate. When the government introduced excise tax on Senator, it said this is a revenue measure which will generate 6.2 billion a year.
And it hasn't.
Very specifically. It has destroyed revenue.
Well, not only that, jobs. Outlets.
So, so it's 3,000 outlets have closed. Another 3,000 have redeployed their resources into possibly tax unpaid products or non-taxed products. There are distributors who have closed, a number of them. So there's probably thousands of people who've gone from the formal sector of the economy and either are no longer employed at all, they're unemployed, or they've moved into the informal sector. Our calculations are that there has been some revenue on the little bit of volume that's been retained, but much more has been lost out of VAT on the product that was being sold before. And then in terms of the overall economic impact, the economic impact for government has been revenue destroying.
Do you think the government's listening to what's happened and realizing that a different scenario analysis would have a different outcome?
I genuinely believe that the government is trying to make wise choices. It's trying to do the right thing. I see a lot of integrity in the government actions. I see the intent. I see that the programme of activities that the President and his government have put together, for me, are broadly right. But sometimes, our positive intent doesn't land as kind of positive outcome. And I think in this case, the outcome isn't what they intended it to be. And, I would hope that the government is sufficiently aware of the subject to be able to say, okay, do we need to make an adjustment? Now, if they were to ask me, and they haven't, but if they were to ask me, I would say make an adjustment, because you'll fulfill your ambitions by making an adjustment rather than leaving it where it is.
Because surely for them it's about revenue maximisation, it's not about revenue destruction.
Well,
and the illicit source.
Absolutely. So for me, I think the two big considerations are revenue and health. And the move that was made is not hitting either of those. So I think from my perspective, it's clear that an adjustment should be made, but it's for the government to decide.
Can we move from what was a soft patch to what was really strong patches that I saw? I thought, your flagship brand, which you were speaking about taking international, I like that, what you were saying there.
It's a great plan, right?
Isn't it? And I think you have the diaspora is huge. I think if you leverage, I see the evidence of the diaspora in more than $1 billion of remittances that come back. Yeah. So I was really excited, up 17%. Yeah. And that remains the big beast, isn't it? Still?
Well, I wouldn't call it a beast, Ali Khan. But look, it's one of the largest brands in our portfolio. It's up 17. It was up 17% from a revenue perspective. The volume performance was lower than that. But I think across the range of our sectors, categories, and brands, we were strong everywhere, apart from the emerging sector beer and our RTDs.
Yes.
Emerging sector beer is a big part of our overall business, but as you saw from our results, isn't necessarily a big profit contributor. The RTDs are small, so don't really kind of figure on the radar from any kind of meaningful perspective in terms of impact on our business. I think they've got great potential, but so Tusker and Guinness particularly were stars.
The Guinness off a lower base, right, than Tusker?
Well, yes, a lower base, but Guinness is a big brand. In East Africa, we're the 7th largest Guinness market in the world.
Wow.
In the world, for the Guinness brand, and Guinness is a huge brand across the world. So we're big,
yes.
But it's relatively smaller than Tusker. I'm so excited about Tusker because I think that Tusker is. I said in the session, Tusker is a much loved brand, brand.
I remember when the competition was very aggressive. Yeah. The loyalty and the way you
protectively. It was like this is kind of this is Kenyan, right?
Yeah.
So it's a much loved brand. I think that. We were talking about positive intent. I think that we have had the intent to make it vibrant and energetic, make the love translate into purchase. I don't think we've always done that. I think we spread ourselves quite thinly. If it moves, we sponsor it. If it doesn't, we sponsor it until it does. And we have a lot of advertising and promotional funds available for Tusker, but we haven't focused those funds. So one of the things that we're doing now is we're making some choices about what we're going to do and what we're not going to do.
Yes.
By making those choices, the things that remain we'll be able to do bigger. And on top of that, we're trying to improve our programs. So we're trying to make our programs really, really world class. And before they were good, but they weren't great. In the future, I'm hoping that they'll be great.
Sure. Now, also talking about spirits, because it's counterintuitive, but Diageo is more a spirits company than a beer company, if you look at it in some ways. How is the spirits? I always get excited when I look for premiumization, and I see it in your reserve spirits. Very strong growth, but obviously not as big a part of the P&L as Tusker is. But will it one day get to that point?
No, I'm not sure that it will. I think that if you look at alcoholic beverage markets around the world, beer is always a big contributor to overall market performance, and spirits is usually smaller from a volume perspective, that kind of might compensate by being a little bit more premium and therefore bigger from a revenue perspective. But I can't see a day where spirits are going to be bigger than beer here. That said, as Kenya matures and modernises, as East Africa matures and modernises, people are more internationally brand aware. And on top of that, as the market develops, if the market here follows the same path that other markets have around the world, spirits and wine as well actually will become a bigger part of the overall market. And we're really well placed to be able to take a fair share of that growth and that potential. I'm delighted with the performance of spirits, particularly in the premium and super premium and reserve segments.
You were talking to me about what you saw in Asia, and I found that your presentation very interesting because of that background, that experience you had. You were saying with spirits, you'd go to bars in Asia and people would have buy it by the bottle. Do you think that's going to come here? Or?
Not only is it going to come, it's here already. It's here already, but it's in more selected outlets. I was out in, we call it being out in trade,
yes,
which is a great way of saying going out in bars, right? But I was out in trade last week and I saw spirits full bottle purchase. But just to share one of my experiences from Asia, I can remember going into a bar which was about the size of this room. There were several hundred stand-up tables, like cocktail tables, with 4 or 5 chairs around them. On every single table was a bottle of Johnny Walker Gold Label or Blue Label. Hundreds of them in one room. And there were groups of girls, there were groups of guys, there were groups of girls and guys in this place. There was a live band at one end of the table, and spirits bottle purchase was the thing in that bar. I think that'll come to East Africa, it'll come to Nairobi. It's already here in some bars, but it'll grow and evolve. I'm really, really positive about the prospects of East Africa, and as the GDP growth feeds into wealth in the economies, we'll see growth in those areas.
Your company spans all of East Africa, including countries adjacent, South Sudan. I think DRC falls under the EABL international business. Yes. So you give a tremendous proxy for how the economy is doing in the region. I just wanted to go through the regional side. Yeah, sure. Obviously Tanzania, recent acquisition, bit of noise, isn't that? Will take a bit longer. That was the softest piece of the entire equation. Are you
telling me or asking me?
Asking.
Tanzania, look, we've got a lot to go for in Tanzania. We're relatively low market share there. Our brands aren't as strong as they could be. Our ways of working aren't as entrenched and effective as they are, for instance, in Kenya. We haven't adopted as many of the global best practices as we have in Uganda and in Kenya. And therefore I kind of look at Tanzania and I see that the Tanzania business is one with very healthy prospects going forwards. Now, we've got to translate prospect into reality, and frankly put, we didn't do that in H1. So we made some adjustments to our route to market, which affected at the stock level in the market, and therefore how much we sold in H1. Underlying level, our business is solid there, but we need to kind of kick on. And we bought that business to be a big contributor to EABL. I wasn't involved in the purchase, but I look back on the decision makers, and I think they've made absolutely the right decision. And I think over time we will get that business right, and it will be a big contributor for us.
And just moving around, I mean, you know, EABLI, which is, I think, DRC, it's South Sudan. Are there any other ones in that?
Yeah, so EABLI, 75% of our volume or revenue comes from South Sudan. We've also got business interests in Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, and then EABLI is where we house our duty-free business across the region. So the business that we service primarily into the airports and the ports around the region.
Now, looking at that, obviously South Sudan had an impact. The events there, did they?
Yeah, they did. So in South Sudan, we have been operating in a trading model. So essentially, what we would do is we'd have conversations with entrepreneurs in South Sudan, and we would sell them a container or multi-container batch of product, and then we'd say, okay, come and collect it from our brewery here in Nairobi, which is one way of doing business, right? I don't think it's the most effective way of doing business. So we're migrating from a trading model to an operational model. And what I mean by that is, instead of telling our customers to go collect, we'll bring the product to the customers, and we'll have the transaction much closer to the point of purchase. So we set up a depot in one of the kind of neighborhoods just outside of Juba. We got that up and running during Q2, and just as we opened it, the troubles happened, which led us to have to take a sensible move from my perspective, because health and welfare of our staff is primary consideration for us, to shut that depot for a period of time. And therefore, just as we got up to speed, we then shut the business down, or shut the depot down. It's now up and trading again. So there was some distortion because of the troubles. There was also a bit of distortion as well because of the opening of the depot and migrating from one way of operating to another. So in South Sudan, I'm optimistic about our future prospects. I think the depot model is working for us. We're considering opening 2 or 3 more, and one of the reasons that I'm so optimistic about South Sudan is because our brands are really well regarded in that territory. So Tusker particularly is strong. Johnny Walker Black Label is strong. Bell, Uganda Waraji are both strong. So we've got brands which are appreciated by consumers in South Sudan, and it's up to us to kind of make the most of that.
I was going to just point out something. You know, if you look at Uganda, where you were really strong, I think it was plus 17. If I look at other fast-moving consumer goods companies, they were all complaining of Uganda being very soft because of the tribulations. I would just like to say, so when I saw that, I was quite struck by the fact that you're quite an outlier. What went right in Uganda, or how would you characterize it?
Yeah, good. Look, I think in Uganda maybe we made a little bit more of the Uganda H1 performance than we could have or should have done, really. I think that over a 3-year period, our performance has not been good in Uganda, and therefore the bounce back that we saw in H1 was off soft numbers. A year ago, we were commissioning some new kit into the breweries, and that disrupted our ability to be able to service the market a year ago. So it softened the like-for-like base. Having said that, though, we do have a wonderful portfolio of brands in Uganda. We've got Bell Lager, we've got Uganda Waraji, which is the biggest mainstream spirits. We've put reserve brands into Kampala for the first time ever. They're being very well received. We've got Tusker Malt doing really well, Tusker Light doing really well. We've got a packaged, bottled version of Senator, which is doing well. So we do have a lot, which leads me to be very confident about the near-term performance in Uganda. A little bit like Tanzania, though, we are the smaller player, and the competition's fierce. Now, I quite like being the underdog sometimes. I'm British. Brits like being the underdog sometimes, and we're going to dial up our competitive intensity. We're going to work on strengthening our core brands. We're going to work on an innovation program. We're going to work on our route to consumer, route to market, to make sure that that's doing everything that we want it to do. We've got a number of initiatives which I think will lead us to ultimately win in that market, and I mean win versus the competition. So at the moment we're doing okay. Maybe we overstated it a little bit. 17% is good though, but off a bit of a weak base. But I'm not at the moment kind of popping the celebration corks and kind of telling the team there to give the rest of the year off.
No, I'm sure you wouldn't. Charles, what I find interesting is the fact that you were in Asia, you've now come to Africa. You were very much saying, I think you said, I've seen the future.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what the future is?
I believe it to be true, Ali Khan. I think that my time in Asia has really, really given me an appreciation of the incredible energy and potential that an underdeveloped environment, frankly speaking, East Africa has. And when I went into Southeast Asia, the road system was inadequate. There wasn't a density in the central business district. There wasn't well-developed ecosystem of businesses kind of supporting each other. There wasn't big manufacturing in the way that there is now. And over a 10-15 year period, the growth has just been incredible. And I look at Nairobi, I look at Dar es Salaam, I look at Kampala, and I just think that the same is going to happen. The same is going to happen. Now, as I said to the audience this morning, don't expect it to be your birthright. Don't wait for it.
Yes.
For destiny to be achieved, you've got to go out there and you've got to shape your own destiny.
Yeah.
And my encouragement to all East Africans would be, get out there and drive this. Capture your share of it.
Yes.
But the potential is enormous. And I am so positive about the prospects for East Africa. Now we're doing our bit, right? One of the things I've said is that we're changing the way that we're operating to be much more about recirculating the money in East Africa.
I love that concept.
Why weren't we doing that before, Ali Khan? But by working with farmers to a degree that we weren't before, by sourcing with local suppliers. I go for the caps on the bottles. At the moment, they're sourced from Egypt or somewhere. What good is that doing the East African economy? If I can get that sourcing here, I'll provide jobs or within the kind of ecosystem. Yes. Those people will become wealthier. That wealth will translate into GDP growth. GDP growth will serve our business. So I think it just makes common sense. To work here, to develop a supplier base, to develop the ecosystem here, rather than going out further afield for it. And I just hope that other businesses kind of have that mindset as well.
Before I jump to some of your personal philosophy, which I found very interesting, I just got a couple.
I've got loads of stuff like that.
It's fantastic. I loved it. I was sitting there going, because it really, in life, it does work. You have to find your philosophy, and if you find it right.
Yeah.
I was overhearing you just about that personal philosophy, and you said you work very hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 Hours Theory.
Outliers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a secret to? Obviously nothing comes for free, which is what I think you were saying. But would you say, how hard are you working? When you were 20, 25, starting out in your career, were you there like 10 hours, 12 hours? What were you doing?
Yes. Yeah. Good. So. I've got to admit that I didn't always get the balance right when I was younger, and sometimes I was more interested in following Chelsea play rather than kind of putting in hard yards when I was younger. But I was very fortunate to be in a great organisation in Nestlé, and then I kind of made my mistakes in Nestle, if I'm completely honest. So when I was younger, I didn't always put in the hours that I subsequently did. But maybe around, I don't know, around the age of 23, maybe 24, 25, I kind of got it, you know, I got that. You don't get anything for free in this world. And if you kind of put in hard yards, you work hard, you're diligent, you apply yourself, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be successful, but I think it almost always gives you a greater chance of being successful. So I kind of saw the light, if you like, and I kind of started kind of really diligently applying myself. And I can remember I used to say to Alison, my wife, I used to say, look, you're not going to see me for a few weeks because I'm going to be getting up at kind of early hours, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to kind of do whatever I do in the morning. And then I'm going to put 12, 14 hours in the office, and you know, I'm going to be kind of I used to call it hard yards, putting in some hard yards for the next few weeks, next few months. I've always done that whenever I've had a new job. I kind of, you know, you kind of take the first few weeks, first few months to really kind of get it nailed, and I think that served me well. By the same token, though, I do think I'm kind of lucky to be where I am as well. You know, I've had some breaks. I've had some great kind of mentorship.
But obviously, I think that was part of your interpersonal skills, wasn't it? In that you developed that network of which allowed you to get those breaks to which you're referring to.
Look, I think to a certain extent, but you're sitting with a different Charles Ireland than there was 15, 20 years ago. You know, I've kind of, as I've matured and my hair's got greyer, I've kind of knocked a few of the kind of the corners off me, and I think I'm much better equipped nowadays to kind of be impactful in business than I was before. So you know, I think it's another area that I've worked hard on. You know, I can go on a little bit, as you've seen, but you know, 5 years ago or 10 years ago maybe, you know, standing up in front of 350 people and talking without notes would have filled me with horror. Yes. You know, I said to you before the thing, I don't know what I'm going to say, and you know, and I kind of didn't, right? But I'm confident enough that I know my material, and I've kind of, you know, I've got the experience that I'm kind of able to kind of deliver stuff like that these days.
Very inspirational. Can I just quickly tap back to the business? You know, the business has taken on more leverage, hasn't it? You had to buy out the 20%. It seems to me occasionally when I meet investors who, particularly the older ones who are used to a business which was
we used to have 107 times interest cover.
Good point. Yes, that's and today?
Not that much.
Yeah.
So you've tried. It's
right, but also you're betting on growth, right? I mean, it seems to me, on EAC growth. I meet a lot of people who've held your shares since childhood.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm sure they turn up at your AGM. I've been up there a few times, and they'll put this hand up and they'll say they've held your share and put out the certificate, if they've still got it. What are you telling those people? Because at times I feel that particular audience might not actually get what you're trying to do.
Yeah, look, I suspect that a lot of them won't be watching this back on video as well. Okay, but a number of things. First of all, you know, we had far too much cash in the business, totally inefficient, and not a wise use of shareholders' funds. So it was appropriate to use some of that cash. Now, I think with hindsight, we maybe went too much into kind of being in an indebted position, and we need to look at our balance sheet and get it structured in the right way. We're looking at various initiatives to enable us to do that. The commercial paper was the first step, and we're looking at other things. There's nothing I can talk to you about at the moment, but if there are shareholders watching, I think I can assure them that we're looking at the overall kind of structure and shape of the business, and we're looking at which moves would be appropriate to make sure that our house is in the order that it should always be in. So we had too much cash. Now, potentially we've gone a little bit too far the other way and we've got some steps to make. But in making the move, what did we do? Okay, we bought out the 20% shareholding in KBL, Kenya Breweries, that we didn't own, so we're now a 100% owner, and we bought the Tanzania business. Now, if I go back into those two things, why was buying the minority shareholder out the appropriate thing to do in Kenya? It was the appropriate thing to do because we had a competitor on our board. And that competitor had some rights of veto and to kind of block us doing some things, and they were exercising those rights. So we were more limited than we wanted to be in terms of product development, in terms of our innovation programs, in some of our capital investment activities. And it wasn't a healthy place to be. And therefore, buying them out for a fair market price was the right thing to do. And I'm delighted we did it. What you're seeing now in Kenya is more innovation coming through. You're seeing us being more aggressive in some areas, more assertive and making bigger investments in some areas.
Just describe to me where you're making those.
Well, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to tell you.
Twendekazi.
Just one bit ways, yeah. But the overall shape of our P&L for Kenya, our investments in brand building activities, in which brands we're focusing on, which ones we're not, in the competitive response that we've got to some of the big players coming into the market, some of our innovations.
Just to contextualize that, what market share are you in somewhere like Kenya? I know you told me you're 44% in the EAC.
Overall blended market share for East Africa is about 40-something%.
Yes.
In Kenya it's a bit higher. We've got 90-something% share of beer and about 50% share of spirits.
So the competition has not really made much, you know.
Since I've been here, we've improved our share in beer.
In percentage terms?
Yeah.
So that's quite something, isn't it?
I'm really happy. Yeah, this is my happy face. Look, from a Kenya perspective, we've got a high market share. I think we deserve to have that high market share because we've been here since 1922. We've been investing consistently across that period. We've made the capital investments. We've made the investments in brand equity. We've developed the portfolio that we've got. We've got the networks that we've got. We've got the relationships we've got. We deserve that. And if competitors, be they global or local, try to wrestle that off us, we're going to work hard to try and protect it. So coming back to your question about the balance sheet and our financing, making the repurchase or the purchase of those shares was the right thing to do, absolutely, and enables us to have a better future prospects than we would have had if we were limited by having an external shareholder in place. The other big purchase that we made was Tanzania.
Yeah.
And we completed the purchase in October 2010. Since then, we've been making investments. We've put SAP into the business. We've put some of the other systems and processes. We've pulled some of the activities out of Tanzania and we've put them into a shared service centre.
So we've got a service centre here in Nairobi, right?
Yeah, so we pulled it in.
Which is for Diageo, isn't it?
It's for Africa.
EABL and others, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a Diageo-owned service centre, which is based in Nairobi, employs a couple of hundred people or so now, and provides back office support for some of the kind of standardised systems and processes. We're just moving some of the HR processes in there as well.
Are those choices being informed by the environment in Kenya? Is that a plus? Is Kenya attracting Diageo because of something?
Yes, quite frankly. Diageo is hot on Kenya, is hot on East Africa. Diageo has invested billions and billions and billions of shillings building up its position in EABL. It has taken an incredibly long-term view on Kenya and East Africa. Diageo was in East Africa many, many years ago when other players, were neglecting it. And as part of that positive view of East Africa and Kenya even more specifically, Diageo a few years ago decided to put its shared service centre for Africa in Nairobi. I'm delighted that they've done that, because they're very proximate to us, so that we can have very good relationships with them. But one of the things for me about Africa, East Africa, is the control environment is really important. So being able to kind of be reliable and confident that what we say should be happening is happening, to prevent misappropriation of our funds and kind of ways of working which wouldn't be healthy for us from happening. A strong control environment is important. A strong control environment is enabled by a shared service centre, and we've got one of those, and it's a Diageo owned entity, but we use it, and it's one of the reasons that we've got such a strong business. So coming back to Tanzania, we've been investing in the Tanzania business since we made the initial investment to become the majority shareholder in systems and processes, and pushing some activities into the shared service centre, in our brands, in our people, in our ways of working, in our route to consumer. And those investments are, I'm happy with them. So, I think that we've got a much stronger business today than we had 6 months ago. I think we've got a much stronger business today than we had 2 years ago. It's not showing up in the revenue yet. It's not showing up in the market share yet. It's not showing up in the bottom line yet, but it will. And we'll get that sorted. We will get the brand strengthened. We will get the whole ways of working sorted. And when we do, you'll see 20 years of growth out of that market. Absolutely certain.
Last question. Okay. 92-year-old company, is that correct?
Something like that.
It's a tremendous longevity.
Yeah.
You're now at the helm of it. I think people asked you about your legacy. I'm not going to ask you about something that long. I'll just say, is it exciting to be at the steering wheel of such a company? Are you, I know you said you bought yourself a motorbike. What kind of machine are you sitting on here?
Yeah, so look, I love my metaphors and analogies, right? So, but let me come back to that. Let me just say, it is absolutely an honour and a privilege to have the opportunity to serve the business as the CEO, the Group Managing Director. It is a fantastic business. We've got 29,000 shareholders. We've 29,000 shareholders. We've got over 2,000 staff across the region. We've got 24,000 partners in farming community in Kenya alone. We've got so many different relationships with suppliers and customers and stakeholders, and that has been built up over the 92 years. And I feel honoured to be given the opportunity to lead it, and it's tremendously exciting. The business is incredibly strong in some areas. The business has got an opportunity to become much stronger in other areas. I think that I've got a lot to add, a lot of value to add, and I'm enjoying every moment at the moment. And I say that honestly, despite the fact that there are kind of challenging times. But I don't want business to be boring. I don't want to create challenges, right? Yes. So, but the challenges are kind of exciting as well. And if I think back into my time in Asia, I was in the Philippines for 3 years. That's a challenging environment, I'll tell you. I was in Malaysia for over 6 years. There was some interesting times there. I think what I've been able to add in those environments is, obviously, I kind of got some experience that I can add and can share, and I've got a personal resilience and enthusiasm. I'm a very glass half full person, or the glass is very, very nearly full person. Yes. And I think that kind of equips me well. My chairman did say to me that I'm more grey now than I was when I arrived, though. Well. So maybe I'll start dyeing my hair. I don't know.
Charles, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed your
Mindspeak
session.
No, thank you for the invitation. Really appreciate it.